here, and today we're going to be talking about 5 exercises to help you develop your speed and your accuracy. Now, before we get to those 5 exercises, I just want to talk about a couple of things that's really important for you to adopt the proper mindset to understand what we're doing and why it is that we're doing this. Because oftentimes when we practice, and I'm sure you've done this before, we all have, where we're trying to do something, but we know we're doing it too fast. We know it's sloppy, we know it's not coming together properly, but we just don't know how to break it down and really try and build it back up. So what I want you to understand, number one, is this isn't about how fast you can go. It's about learning to develop the strength, the stamina, and the synchronicity between your hands to create the opportunity to go faster. That's what we need to be able to do. So it's not just trying to do something fast, but understanding what it is that we're doing and developing the synchronicity and the stamina and the strength really between our hands to be able to execute whatever it is that we're trying to do. Number 2, we need to always start slow and pay attention to every detail. Okay, if you're lacking in some capacity when you're trying to do something, maybe there's a finger that's too weak, or a picking angle or a movement between strings or something that you're struggling with, you need to become aware of that, and you need to extract that and try and develop that before you head back into whatever the exercises that you're trying to do. That way, everything comes together. We try and build something, we figure out what the problem is in this element that we're trying to build, we take that out, we try and kind of fix whatever that problem is, and then put it back in and keep going. So, number 3, be aware of the difference between reality and pretending. We can impress maybe our friends or something like that fairly easy, but when we're really trying to develop the ability to do something that we're not able to do properly, we need to be honest with ourselves. That's the most important thing. And then the last thing is on the exercises that use a metronome, which we do have some of those, you first want to start without it to make sure you understand what you're trying to accomplish. Again, you're fixing any of the problems that you might be having, and then you're going to go ahead and start using that metronome, all right? So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our first exercise, I want you to think about this. You're only as fast as your slowest hand, slowest finger, or slowest transition, okay? So when you try and do something, whoever is failing, whether it's the synchronicity between the hands, whether it's a finger combination or a movement of the guitar pick, you're only going to be as fast as whatever the slowest element is, okay? So we're going to start off doing what I refer to as the 20-second legato exercise. This is a great exercise to work on to develop your fretting hand. In my case, it's your left hand, but if you flip over the guitar, of course, it would be different. When we do these, remember, there are 2 different kinds of practices that you want to develop. The first thing is just a general warm-up. When you're doing any of the exercises we're going to be talking about, you can warm up, and then you can start really getting into whatever it is that you're trying to do. But if you're, grabbing the guitar, first time in the day, you just got home from work or whatever it might be, you need to give yourself a little bit of break and get yourself in the right mindset, get warmed up a little bit, and then start hitting these things, okay? As we talk about these, just understand they can be used both ways, as a simple warm-up or as a real strengthening style exercise. Okay? So the 20-second legato exercise, what happens on this is for about 20 seconds, what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and do some hammer-ons and pull-offs. Now, it doesn't matter what string or what fret you're at. I always wind up going to the 5th fret of the 3rd string, but you can go anywhere. And basically what we're going to do is for 20 seconds or as long as we can, we're going to try and do a hammer-on pull-off sequence. Which is what we call a trill, and we're just going back and forth between the first finger and the middle finger. And the goal to this is you want to be able to do that for 20 seconds. You want to go as hard and as fast as you can with this legato exercise for 20 straight seconds. Now, if 20 is too much, you can always start with 10 or something like that, and it's perfectly fine. Okay, but the trick here is you're trying to build strength and speed and of course stamina between each finger combination that we're going to go through. So you want to do this as fast as you can. You don't just want to go. Now you might do that in the beginning like we talked about because there might be some issues or something and you want to fix that, okay? You're learning how to do a hammer-on or how to do a pull-off or something like that. Do it as slow as you need to, and then once you get it together, then you want to go in and start doing this again for 20 seconds, right? So we have... Become swift at it. That's what you want. Become efficient at it. So it sounds great, but yet it's quick, right? Now, what you're going to do is after 20 seconds of doing this, without stopping, you're going to move to your third finger and do first to third finger. And then again, without stopping, you're going to move to your pinky. So you're doing first and pinky. And then as best you can without stopping, you're going to set your middle finger down and you're going to go to your ring finger. And again, without stopping, you're going to move from your middle finger to your pinky. And then as best you can without stopping, you're going to go to your third finger and then go to your pinky. Now, that's the 20-second exercise. Each one of those you're doing for a sequence of 20 seconds. When you practice these, this is a great exercise, and I try and encourage people to do this every day. You might do this exercise twice or 3 times or 4 times a day. Just whenever you grab your guitar, the first thing you do is you just warm up to this. Okay, you could have a timer if you wanted to, or you can just kind of count in your head or whatever you want to do. But the point is that you want to get to a point of struggle where your muscles are getting a bit fatigued. That's the goal. When you start off, you're starting with your strong fingers. So by the time you get to the end, it's going to be a lot harder to do. So I tell people, one thing that you can do is throughout the day, if you like to do this exercise 2, 3, 4 times a day, there's 2 other things that you can do with it. Number 1, you could start backwards. So maybe start with these fingers and work your way backwards as you go, okay? So you're ending with the strong fingers, you're starting with the weak fingers. And the last thing you can do, which is the third option, is separate, as we talked about at the beginning of this video, separate the ones that you're struggling with most. Which is going to be your middle to third, middle to pinky, or certainly the third to the pinky. Those are the ones you're going to struggle with most. So you might just isolate those at some point during your day and just work on this. Or just work on this. So instead of going through the entire sequence, which you should do, you could also do this where you're just isolating those fingers that you're having, those combinations you're having a problem with. So this is a great way to approach exercise number 1, which is the 20-second exercise in 3 different ways. All right, next up we have what I call the 2-minute exercise, and this now is going to head over to the picking hand. And we're going to start developing down picking for 2 minutes. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and work on being as relaxed and efficient as we can with minimal motion of the guitar pick. So this is where we're going to use a metronome. We don't need a metronome on the 20-second exercise, but this one we are. But before I use the metronome, the first thing I have to do is understand, how is my picking technique? Am I relaxed? You know, I'm going to be using a palm mute for this exercise. So, you know, do I know how to palm mute? Those kinds of questions you want to have before you go ahead and just start using the metronome. So I'm going to go in here and just kind of develop my ability of being able to do some down picking. You know, thinking about, is my motion coming more from the elbow, or is it coming more from the wrist, or is it coming more from the fingers? And everybody's a little different that way. So you have to figure out what works best for you, okay? So we take this exercise now, and I'm going to set my metronome at 170 for all of these, so I'm not just switching the metronome around. So here's my metronome. Now, I could set that metronome at any speed. I can't really hear the metronome right now, but I don't want it to be too loud on your end. It doesn't have to be fast. What you want to do is you want to take that metronome, and I always tell people, try and find 2 per click. So when you hear bump, 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 dot, 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 that's what you're going to be playing. Okay, so you're going to play 2 per click, and what you want to be able to do is do this for 2 straight minutes. Now the first 10, 15, 20, even 30 seconds should be pretty easy for you. It's once you reach that minute mark that you're going to start feeling a bit of tension in what you're doing. You want there to be a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of a struggle, but you want to be able to get through 2 minutes. So that's how you're going to figure out the proper speed of the metronome for you, is if you try and do this for 2 minutes and you can't do it, the metronome is too fast. If you try and do it for 2 minutes and you know you're faking it, it's too fast. If you try and do it for 2 minutes and it doesn't do anything for you, you can do it really easy. It's too slow. So you just try and keep dialing it in until you find that speed that works for you. I'm going to turn down a little bit more here. You see? And you just keep trying to work that until you get it to where you need it, and that's an exercise that you can do to try and develop your down picking. Now, you can also use this for alternate picking. You don't have to just do down picking. With alternate picking, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to, again, just be going faster. You know, I mean, if you've never done this before, you could start the same way. At the same speed. But you're probably going to, you know, surpass that fairly quick. So you want to figure out where you need to be with your alternate picking there. Find a speed that works for you and then set your metronome and keep working at it for 2 minutes, okay? So it's not just a matter of like doing in terms of how fast it can go. That's great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we're trying to actually set this against a metronome so we know how fast we can actually do it for 2 straight minutes. So you could do it down, you could do it alternate, whatever works for you. All right, so the third exercise we have is a 4-finger exercise. You may have done this before. All you're going to do is take your guitar here and you're just going to play. You're just playing 1, 2, 3, 4. With alternate picking. Now, the big thing with this one is that you're trying to get used to being able to play all 4 fingers. Similar to the legato exercise we were doing, make sure that there's enough strength in each one of the fingers, and most certainly that you can hear all 4 of them. Because when I do this with students oftentimes, like the 3rd finger, it'll sound, again, if I can do this, it'll sound kind of like this. Kind of like that, where the 3rd finger might not even exist because the pinky is going down too quick. And so we have to learn to be able to hear all 4 of those notes, even going backward. So this is something that you could do before you start a metronome, is just working this all out. The second part of that is making the connection to the next string. Again, so each note is clean and clear and even, and you can hear everything. You don't need to use distortion if you don't want to. You can do it on an acoustic guitar, whatever works for you, okay? But the big thing is don't let the distortion hide the problems, because oftentimes that can happen. Make sure that you're really able to hear and feel those connections. Now, what I do when I teach this, and you could do this any way you want, but I just have them start at the 1st fret. When they get to the top, we just move up and we go backwards. Okay? Now, the only problem with that is that we're missing 2 directions. We're going toward the floor, but we're going forward. And then we're going toward the ceiling and we're going backward, which are the most logical things that we would do. But if you really wanted to, you could reverse those and go toward the floor, but go backward. And then move up and go toward the ceiling, but go forward. Now, the only caution I will give you right now is that it's very easy when you start doing these exercises to make 438 different exercises out of an exercise. Well, I could go 1, 4, 2, 3, and I can go 1, 3, 2, 4. That's all great. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is if you make 438 exercises, are you really going to do them every day, right? So what I try and do is get people to understand that the most crucial exercises are the ones that you need to work with the most. You know, when you're playing scales and things like that, you're usually moving forward toward the floor and maybe backward toward the ceiling. So those are logical things that we should practice. If you want to make subgroupings of these things and you really have time to do all of that, that's fine. But, you know, as humans, we tend to just make all of, like, it's a mathematical thing. Well, what are all the mathematical possibilities? And now I'm all of a sudden doing math and I'm not actually practicing, right? So don't overwhelm yourself with so many things. Just find the things that work for you and practice those on a daily basis. Practice on the days that you eat. That's the rule I always tell people. So this is a great one. Then what you can do is you can take your metronome. Again, I'll just leave this at 170 for right now. And really trying to lock into that metronome. Again, you know, if you need to slow it down or speed it up or whatever, and then really just get used to thinking, like every other note is going to connect to that metronome. And really make sure that you're connected. If you're having problems with a particular finger, stop, go back, do some legato stuff. You know, you can practice just doing, get that finger in there. Find the issue and really try and work on that, and then come back to the exercise. All right, so the next one we've got is pretty similar to that one. It's a 3-finger exercise. Instead of doing 4-finger, which is more of a chromatic style, we'd be doing a 3 note per string exercise that is a bit more scalular in form. And there's lots of different ways that we could do this. I'm just going to use an actual scale shape to begin with, but you could do all kinds of different things. If you know, for instance, your diatonic scale, and you know your modes, or you know different positions, you can practice different positions. Let's just use the G major standard position, and I'm going to be playing what we call a spread fingering, and it looks like this. I'm going to play 3-5-7, 3-5-7, 4-5-7, 4-5-7, and then 5-7-8, 5-7-8. So that's what I'm going to use for this. Again, if you know some other shape, you can use whatever you want. And so what I'm doing here is I'm simply learning. As I play this, I'm alternate picking, so I'm going down, up, down on this string. And I'm learning how to go up, down, up on the next string. So it's really 2 groups of 3 here. I've got down, up, down, up, down, up, which is a similar shape you can see there. And then I go to this string, I have down, up, down, up again. And then I go to this string, and I have the same thing again, down, up, down, up, down, up. So I'm training myself to play in groups of 6, playing down, up, down, up, down, up. And most importantly, I'm training myself to be able to switch a string and not have to start with the down. If you're asking yourself, well, what about, economy picking? Can I play those as downs? Absolutely. If you want to play down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, there's nothing wrong with that. I would still highly suggest, though, that you learn how to play alternate picking all the way through, because you never know, as you really start learning how to play and you develop, motion across the fretboard and licks and sequences, sometimes just playing with economy picking isn't going to give you a solution to everything. So what I would say, if you know what I'm talking about, if you know what economy picking is, and if you don't, it's okay, but learn how to do both. So learn how to play down, up, down, down, up, down, like that, but learn how to play down, up, down, up, down, up, to develop that speed as well, okay? That way you're covered as you go. So don't just feel like there's only one way, and we'll get to that at the end too. We'll talk about some tips at the end of this video. So anyway, you can set your metronome now. Again, I've just got this at 170 again, just so I can do this. Okay, so you could just do something as simple as that, trying to get used to that. Now, if you want to play, as a triplet feel, you could do that. If I went to like that, it's going to be harder, obviously, doing it like that. Okay, so that brings up the next point, is if you'd rather do something like that, in either way, you could do it either way. I could do 2 per click, I can do 3 per click, I can slow it down, whatever it is I need to do. Again, just to save time, I'm not going to keep slowing down the metronome, but let's say that's what I wanted to work on, was doing 3 per click, and maybe I'm struggling with playing all 6 strings. You could isolate just one thing and practice that. Let me show you. So let's say I start my metronome and I go to the 4th string here, which is 4, 5, 7, and I'm going to do this. And maybe I just practice going up and down with that. And now watch, I'm going to go backwards this time. I'm going to go. Just make one little sequence out of that. You see what I mean? So I can make little ideas out of the bigger idea to try and develop, a particular finger group that I'm using. Right now I'm using 1, 2, 4. If I went to the first and second string, I'd be doing 1, 3, 4. If I went to the sixth string, I'd be using the spread fingering. And again, you don't have to be in the key of G. You don't have to use this position. If you really wanted to work on this particular fingering, you could move that anywhere you wanted to and just practice that. The point is find something that works for you and understand what we're doing here as we drip down these exercises. We did a legato thing, and then we did a picking thing, then we did a 4-note thing, and then we did a 3-note thing. All right? So the last exercise I want to give you is just an exercise that I came up with a long time ago for students who are really trying to learn how to play fast. And the metronome, they're working with a metronome, but they're just not getting to the speeds that they want to get to. There was a technique I came up with a long time ago called bursting. I didn't know what else to call it. Just called it bursting. And basically what you're doing is you're working from the top down. You're trying to do something faster than you're probably capable, but sometimes the hands will come together and they'll start actually working. So the metronome is coming from the bottom and you're getting faster and faster, and bursting is coming from the top, and then you can try and slow it down, but you're trying to get these to work. And the best analogy I can use is you can go out and exercise and run and whatever, but you'll never run as fast as you will when you're being chased by a big rabid dog that's trying to bite you, right? You'd be running faster than you've ever ran in your entire life. That's what bursting is it's just doing things that are faster than you're usually capable of doing. And the way bursting works is, again, I could take that same exercise that I was doing right here. And again, it doesn't have to be repetitive. I don't have to keep doing it. I just burst that out. Or maybe I'm doing a group of 4. Right? Whatever it might be that I'm trying to work on, I'm purposely going a lot faster than I ever could when I was in the controlled environment. And I'm really trying to develop the understanding of how these fingers are going to connect together at this faster speed. Now, the downside, of course, to bursting is that we don't really have a tempo or a metronome. But the plus side is if you can really start getting 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, or 1, 3, 4, these finger combinations, to start understanding each other at these faster speeds and be able to connect from one string to the next. I'm using 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. And again, I could play just, some sort of shape that I'm trying to develop the finger combination, or I can play diatonically or whatever, if I want to. Maybe I'm doing something like that. So you're trying to just do something really fast and lock in. When you first start doing this, it's probably going to be pretty sloppy and it's not really going to work. But the more you practice it, all of a sudden they'll start kind of trying to find each other, and again, it takes some practice. It's just a different kind of practice than the other exercises we were doing. But it's a really great way of being able to get that higher end stuff that you might be able to use when you're soloing or improvising or whatever it might be, that you could use for some of your really fast licks. And then you're still developing this whole base level that's getting better and stronger. And, you're developing all of those elements that keep moving up. So hopefully that kind of makes sense to you as you're practicing these things. As you get better, just holistically, as you get better at playing and you're developing all of these things and you're working on scales and licks and things like that, what I want you to remember ultimately at the end here is that playing isn't about whether you're picking everything or whether you're playing everything as hammer-ons and pull-offs, which we call legato playing. After a while, these things that you're working on when you're really playing or you're really improvising or whatever it might be, they kind of overlap each other. Like sometimes you'll do a little bit of legato and then all of a sudden you'll pick a little bit. And every player that you like does this sort of thing. They have certain things that they've developed that they pick. This certain sequence or whatever. And then they have this thing that they're doing that's more legato based, and the players will be different. Player X might do more picking where player Y will do more legato. What you're going to find most of the time is that you're somewhere in the middle there. You develop certain things that you pick, and there's certain things that you do more legato. But when you're actually like moving around and playing and jamming and doing all this stuff, you're going to find that sometimes just by nature, this little thing was easier to, it felt better to me to do more legato. And then this thing, all of a sudden, I'm doing more picking, and they'll just be interacting across the fretboard. I think that's one of the most important things for you to get to ultimately, because that's where you exist. That's where your style and your approach to playing really is. It's not just one or the other. So just keep that in mind, right? If you want me to make any other videos about any topics that you're interested in, do me a huge favor and just in the comments, let me know what kind of stuff you'd like me to discuss, and I'd be happy to make some videos on it, all right? So take care, stay positive, and I'll talk to you soon, all right?